The wedding night felt colder than winter, even with the fire burning bright. Candles shook against silk walls, throwing long shadows that crawled across the room like living things. Lady Saraphene Ashburner stood before the mirror, staring at a woman she barely recognized. Ivory silk wrapped her body like a cage. Pearls weighed down her neck. The gown was beautiful, but it felt like a sentence passed by strangers who never asked her consent. The clock on the mantel ticked loud and slow. Each sound pushed her closer to what waited on the other side of the door. She lifted her trembling hands to the high collar of her nightdress and checked it once more. No skin showed. Nothing could be seen. It had to stay that way. Always. She had brought nothing into this marriage but her name. Everyone knew it. Whispers had followed her through the church, soft but sharp. A disgraced Earl's daughter. A cold bargain for a colder duke. People watched closely as Lord Caspian Dunley, Duke of Westland, placed the ring on her finger. His face never softened. His gray eyes never warmed. There was no smile, only duty. The wedding breakfast had felt like a funeral. Toast after toast buried any foolish hope she once held. By nightfall, London slept, and Saraphene stood alone in the chambers that now belonged to her. Have you ever stood on the edge of your wedding night, knowing you carried secrets that would destroy any hope of being loved? Have you ever hidden scars so deep you forgot what your own skin looked like without shame? The fire snapped and hissed, but she could not feel its heat. Her maid had left quietly, pity in her eyes, rose water lingering in the air. Saraphene remembered her father's voice from the night he sold her future. Be grateful, he had said. A man of his standing would not normally consider the daughter of a ruined earl. The mirror showed a pale woman, with eyes too large for her face. Dark shadows lived beneath them. Fear had been her companion for years, and tonight it stood close. She reached for the silk robe laid across the bed. Lace at the cuffs, pearls at the collar, worth a fortune, made to hide what no one was meant to see. The door opened softly. The Duke stepped inside. He still wore his evening clothes, jacket removed, every line neat and controlled. His tie remained perfectly set, as if even now he refused disorder. He paused, his gaze sweeping the room before settling on her. Lady Saraphene, he said. Her name sounded like a judgment. Your Grace, she replied, barely louder than the fire. He moved to the sideboard and poured himself a drink. The crystal caught the light as amber liquid filled the glass. Every movement was precise, careful, controlled. I trust the chambers are acceptable, he said. They are magnificent. I am grateful. Gratitude is unnecessary between husband and wife. He took a small sip. This marriage is a contract that benefits both our families. The words struck like ice. Yes, Your Grace. His eyes narrowed slightly. You need not be so formal when we are alone. What would you prefer? Caspian. The name hung between them, heavy and strange. He set the glass down. It is late. We should retire. Her throat tightened. Her fingers clenched the silk robe. As you wish. He crossed the room. Each step echoed in her chest. When he stopped before her, she caught the faint scent of clean soap and something sharp and calm. He raised a hand toward the tie at her robe. May I? She nodded. She could not speak. His fingers brushed the silk. She closed her eyes. This was duty. This was the price paid for her father's sins. This was what women like her were born to endure. The tie loosened. The robe slipped from one shoulder. Silence fell. Not the quiet of peace, but the kind that steals breath. She opened her eyes. The Duke was staring at her shoulder, not her face, not her eyes. His gaze was fixed on the pale skin now exposed, on the thin silver lines that crossed it, lines that caught the firelight and refused to hide. His face changed. The mask he wore cracked. Control slipped. Who did this to you? He whispered. Her heart slammed against her ribs. She reached to pull the silk back up. It does not matter, she said quickly. The past is buried. His hand caught the fabric. Not rough. Firm. Do not hide, he said. Not now. She lifted her chin, pride rising where fear once lived. My father, she said. The words fell heavy. The Earl of Ashburner does not forgive disobedience. The Duke's jaw tightened. For what crime? I spoke against his gambling. I begged him to stop. For my mother's sake. For my brother. A hollow sound escaped her. He taught me that a daughter exists to obey. And your mother? She died 3 winters ago. The Duke turned away, standing at the window. Moonlight carved his face into stone and shadow. When he spoke again, his voice was steady, but something dark lived beneath it. I am not your father, he said, and no hand will ever be raised against you in this house. She watched him, unsure if hope was allowed. What of your rights? She asked. What of duty? He turned back to her. His gray eyes held fire. I will claim nothing that is not freely given. He stepped back, picking up his jacket. Rest, he said. Tomorrow begins something new. The door closed behind him. Saraphene stood alone, heart racing, her secret exposed, the marks beneath silk and lace no longer unseen. And for the first time, she wondered if this cold duty might yet become something else. Do you believe that sometimes the people we're told to fear are the ones who finally see us? That real power isn't about control, but about choosing not to use it? Morning light spilled across the room, soft and pale, as if unsure it was welcome. Saraphene woke slowly, confusion settling before memory returned. The fire had burned low. The chair near the door stood empty. Caspian had kept his word. He had not returned. Her hand moved to her shoulder without thought. The scars were still there, but something had changed. They no longer felt like a secret choking her breath. They felt seen. She rose and dressed carefully, choosing a pale blue gown with a high collar. Habit still ruled her hands. When she entered the breakfast room, Caspian's chair was empty. His Grace left early, the butler said. He will return for dinner. Relief and disappointment tangled inside her chest. She spent the day wandering the house. The library smelled of leather and dust and old authority. The portraits watched her with unreadable eyes. She felt like an intruder wearing borrowed power. Late afternoon found her in the conservatory. Sunlight warmed the glass. Flowers crowded the space, alive and bold. She stood among them when footsteps sounded behind her. I am told you have been exploring, Caspian said. She turned. He wore riding clothes, his tie loosened, something human showing through the formality. Yes, the house is impressive, and yet you stand as though waiting to be dismissed. Am I not? His brow furrowed. You are the Duchess of Westland. This house is yours. Titles do not grant power, she said quietly. Permission does. He stepped closer. Then permit me to be clear. You are not powerless here. He reached inside his coat and handed her a folded letter. Her father's seal. Her breath caught as she read a demand, sharp, cold. He wished to visit to ensure the marriage had been fulfilled. Read my reply, Caspian said. Beneath her father's words was one line, written firm and certain. The Duchess of Westland is under my protection. You will not cross this threshold. She looked up, stunned. You would defy him. I would defy any man who harmed my wife. He will rage. She whispered. He will spread poison. Let him, Caspian said. I will not allow him near you. Something shifted inside her. Not relief. Strength. Why? She asked. We barely know each other. I know enough, he replied. I know you endured. I know you survived. His hand hovered near her collar. May I? Her heart raced. She nodded. He undid the top button just enough to reveal the edge of a scar. Instead of turning away, he bent and pressed his lips gently to the marked skin. Perfect, he said. Tears burned her eyes, not from pain, but from being seen. That night, London whispered. The Duke had barred the Earl of Ashburner. The scandal spread fast. Saraphene attended her first gathering as Duchess days later. The room buzzed with judgment and curiosity. She wore deep blue silk and the Westland sapphires at her throat. Caspian had clasped them himself that morning. Let them see your worth, he had said. Her father appeared before her with a smile that held no warmth. Enjoying your elevation? He murmured. My health is excellent, she replied, and my happiness well guarded. A voice cut through the tension. You mistake the arrangement, Caspian said, joining her side. He took her hand. This is my wife. The Earl sneered. Pretty jewels do not make devotion. True, Caspian said calmly, but cruelty destroys any claim to authority. Gasps followed. You go too far, the Earl hissed. Not far enough, Caspian replied. And if you wish, I can make your conduct public. Silence fell. Saraphene felt old fear rise. Then she straightened. "I am not what you made me," she said clearly. "I am what I survived." The room stirred. Whispers shifted. Caspian led her to the dance floor. Music rose. His hand settled at her back, steady and warm. "You were brave," he murmured. "I was terrified. Bravery often is." That night, back in their chambers, Saraphene stood before him. "I would have you see all of me," she said. He searched her face. "Only if you wish." "I do." She let the gown fall. The scars showed fully in the candlelight. Caspian approached slowly. His expression held anger, sorrow, and something like reverence. "These are not shame," he said. "They are proof you lived." He touched her scars with care, reclaiming each one from memory. When they joined, it was not duty. It was choice. Later, she slept against his chest, safe. Morning came softer this time. Over breakfast, Caspian spoke of leaving London. "Sussex," he said. "Dunley Park." Away from him, she realized. "Away from all of this," he agreed. "Time for us." She smiled. "Then let us go." As the carriage carried them into open land, Saraphene felt the past loosen its grip. For the first time, the future felt like something she was allowed to want. Have you ever discovered that the person you married out of obligation became the person who set you free? That protection can become devotion when it's offered without conditions. Dunley Park rose from the hills, like a promise kept. Golden stone caught the afternoon light as the carriage slowed beneath ancient trees. Saraphene leaned forward, her breath catching. The house did not feel cold or watchful like the London residence. It felt open, waiting. Caspian helped her down, his hand firm at her waist. Servants lined the steps, respectful and calm. The housekeeper welcomed her with steady eyes and a warm voice. For the first time, Saraphene did not feel like an object being inspected. She felt expected. Her rooms overlooked a lake that reflected the sky like glass. Fresh flowers stood on every table. Books she loved rested on the writing desk. Caspian watched her notice each detail. "I wanted you to feel at home," he said. She turned to him. "You listened." That night passed in quiet comfort. No fear followed her into sleep. Days settled into a gentle rhythm. They walked the grounds together. They spoke over meals, without formality. Sometimes silence filled the space. Not sharp or heavy, but easy. Saraphene began to breathe differently. Deeper. Freer. One afternoon, they stood beside the lake. Swans moved across the water, calm and unafraid. "I received word from London," Caspian said. "Your father's debts now belong to me." Her chest tightened. "What does that mean for him?" "It means his future depends on my decision." "Or yours." She turned to face him, startled. "Mine." He nodded. "What would you have done?" The weight of the question pressed against years of pain. She remembered the marks, the fear, the silence she had learned to survive in. "I do not want to become him," she said at last. "I do not want to rule through pain." Caspian watched her closely. "Let him pay what he can," she continued. "Let him live knowing he has no power over me again." A slow respect crossed his face. "Then it shall be done." That night, when Caspian came to her chamber, there was no hesitation between them. His touch held no claim, only care. Her scars no longer burned. They rested beneath his hands as truth, not shame. Seasons turned. London grew distant. Gossip faded. The Earl paid his debts in silence. Saraphene changed. High collars lowered. Her step grew sure. She laughed more easily. She spoke her thoughts without fear of punishment. Caspian listened. Always. One morning she stood at the window, one hand resting on her abdomen, the world suddenly brighter and more fragile than before. Caspian noticed at once. "You are quiet," he said. She turned to him, eyes shining. "We will need a nursery." He froze. Then joy broke through his careful control. He crossed the room and gathered her into his arms. "Safe," he whispered. "Always." Winter arrived softly. Snow covered the gardens like forgiveness. Saraphene stood in the nursery, light pouring over pale walls. She no longer hid her shoulders. The scars showed faintly beneath thin fabric. No longer secrets. "I want our child to see truth," she said. "Not perfection." Caspian's voice thickened. "Then truth they shall have." They stood together watching snowfall, partners bound not by contract, but by choice. When spring returned, The house bloomed again. Laughter echoed in halls once silent. Servants spoke of the Duchess with affection, not fear. Saraphene wrote to her brother. She spoke honestly. She spoke without shame. One afternoon she sat in the garden, while Caspian read beside her. She felt his hand cover hers, steady and warm. "I once thought love was something earned through obedience," she said. "And now I know it is given through respect." He kissed her hand. "You taught me that strength is quiet." They welcomed their child beneath summer skies, a daughter, small, perfect. Saraphene held her, tears falling freely. "You are safe," she whispered. Caspian stood beside her, eyes full. She will never learn fear in her own home. Years later, a portrait hung in the gallery. The Duke, the Duchess, their child between them. Saraphene wore a gown that revealed her shoulders fully. The scars were visible, honest. Visitors noticed. Some whispered, but none dared question, because those marks no longer told a story of pain. They told a story of survival. The wedding night had begun as a cold duty. It ended as the beginning of a life reclaimed. What was once hidden beneath silk and lace became the foundation of love, trust, and a future built without fear. And in that truth, Saraphene finally found herself. Do you believe that sometimes the scars we hide become the very things that help us find the people who will truly see us? That what we think will destroy us can actually become our strength when placed in hands that hold us gently. This story reminds us that love isn't about perfection. It's about seeing someone's wounds and choosing to honor them, not exploit them. Sometimes the coldest duty transforms into the warmest devotion, and sometimes what we're told as shame becomes the proof we survived. If this story moved you, subscribe to hear more tales from grand estates and hidden hearts, stories of women who carried secrets carved into their skin, men who chose protection over power, and marriages that began as contracts but became covenants of trust. Share your thoughts if you believe that real strength isn't about never being broken, but about finding someone who sees your scars and says, "These make you extraordinary, not damaged." Sometimes the wedding night that begins in silence ends with a voice finally finding the courage to speak, and sometimes the marks we hide beneath silk and lace become the foundation of a love that refuses to be ashamed.